Hey, beautiful humans. Thank you for tuning into the Love and Life podcast, the podcast where we talk about how to live and love authentically, whatever that might look like to you. I'm your host, Elizabeth Cunningham. Let's dive in. Hey, amazing humans. Thanks for dropping in with me today. And today, the working title of this episode is called Notes from a Recovering Fixer. And first, a couple things. Number one, there's still construction going on around my house. And so if you hear banging noises in the background, that's because there's banging noises in the background. There you go. Double entendre intended. Uh, and then what was the other thing that I was gonna say? Oh yeah. So I think I'm gonna change. I think I'm gonna change the title of my podcast. There's another podcast called the Love and Life podcast by two other humans. And they've been doing their Love and Life podcast longer than I've been doing mine. And I feel like I should change the name of mine. And I don't know what it's going to be yet. It might just be my name because you know what? Like, yeah, the Elizabeth Cunningham podcast, because, that just seems. No one else has that podcast. I don't know. I'm just letting you know that I think I might change the name of the podcast. So if you see it changed, and don't be alarmed. There you go. Okay, notes from a recovering fixer, and specifically like tagline, how you're getting in the way of your partner's growth and how that is impacting you and your relationship and why it's making you more frustrated as a fixer. And this is the thing, a lot of fixers, and I myself am absolutely the reason it's like notes from a recovering fixer is because I was talking about my one of some of my past relationships. I was in Nebraska with my family this past weekend, and I was talking to my aunt, and I was sharing about a past relationship, and she was like, "You're a fixer," and and I love my family, and I was like, I started laughing, and then I was like, you know what? I'm a recovering fixer because I recognized that I was a fixer several years ago, and I've been doing my darndest to notice when I'm doing that, to be aware of it, to have other actions to take, and really because I really noticed that, because at first when I first heard the term fixer, like a fixer in a relationship, was when I was 25. And that was when I just stopped working at the domestic violence center. I just started living in Seattle, and I had just started doing transformational life coaching work, like personal and professional development work. And and that was the first time that I heard the term fixer in a relationship. And at first I was like, you're saying it like it's a bad thing, but I don't know if it's a bad thing. Like that's where I was at that time. And because being a fixer does come from a good and intentionally good place, because you want things to go well. And but the bad part is that usually as a fixer, there's a specific way that you think that things should go in order for them to go well. And so if things are out of alignment with how you think that they should go, even if you know better, okay, this is where the awareness piece comes in, y'all, because this is where I hear people say something like, oh, well, I know that da 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 da, or like something. You know it. I know that you know it, but do you the like I want you to take the case, like, just for this conversation, okay? Like, just for this conversation, I want you to take the case that you have something to learn here. Okay, like there's something that you can improve upon that will make you a better partner, that will make your relationships more peaceful, that will give some breathing room for both you and your partner or partners in your relationship. So I want you to listen to this episode with an open mind, open heart, that there is something here for you. Okay. So, recovering fixer, how you're hurting your relationships is um because you see that there's a way that things could be better, and you have a very specific idea or vision, and maybe it's well founded too. Again, maybe it's well founded. You've gone to classes, you've gone to therapy, you've read books, like da 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 da. Like usually fixers are those type of people who like are doing the things but they're not slowing down enough to see how their doing of something is being destructive. Fixers don't see that giving something breathing room is actually probably going to be more productive than the doing of something. And there's different reasons why people who are fixers like get really anxious around letting go of the doing of something. Maybe it's a control thing, maybe it's a anxiety thing, maybe it's a fear thing. Where it's like, oh, well, if I don't do this, then everything will be terrible, or this person will leave me, or like it won't get better, or something like that. Or maybe it's a combination of all of those things: control, anxiety, and fear. Um, so when you have that mindset, and it's like a gripping, right? It's like you're holding on to something because it has to be a certain way, or there's a right way to do something, or your partner isn't doing like in your mind. And I'm just speaking also from like my own personal experience, where it's like in your mind, if only your partner would do X, then things would be better. If only your partner would go to therapy, if only your partner would listen to you, if only your partner would stop doing this thing, if only your partner would, etc., etc., etc. And you're putting a lot of onus on your partner, your relationship, and like maybe you are doing self-reflection, but I want you to consider the impact that like meddling of energy, like imagine that, like you're like, if only they were doing this, if only this were happening, if only this da, 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 da. Like that's like you extending and like hooking your energy into someone else or into a situation, when what you actually want to be doing, like I want you to imagine that like you're like reaching out and like grabbing onto someone. There's like a gripping of that person, like energetically. And so when you're doing that, like if you were, I don't know, teaching someone how to ride a bike, like you're teaching a kid how to ride a bike, like yes, for a while like you might be like helping them, like being there beside them, but they have to fall. They have to figure out balance on their own. If you're constantly holding on to them, they're never going to learn how to ride a bike. This analogy, I realize now that I'm using it, sounds a little patronizing and like uh and like putting it onto adult relationships. So I hope that you can hear like the principle of this analogy and not the patronizingness of this analogy. That was not a good analogy to use. Don't use, note to self, don't use that analogy for this in the future. um but you get like that gripping, right? Like if you don't let go and let people like discover for themselves, balance for themselves, what they need for themselves. And it is hard. And especially as someone who is controlling, anxious, and fearful, it is hard for someone, and that you care about this person. Like it is hard for someone like that, and again, myself included, to watch people go through their process when maybe you know how to make it faster, or maybe you have some ideas, or etc., etc., etc. Let it go. You have to let it go. You have to let your relationship breathe. You have to let people figure things out on their own. Speaking from an educator standpoint, it is so much more powerful for people when they discover things on their own than when you tell them something. That's why advice doesn't work. Stop giving people advice. Fixers always give people advice. Stop, 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 stop giving people advice. It's not helpful. It's counterproductive because people need to figure things out on their own. If it's consensual, if they're like, and fixers, now, I don't mean consensual as in like people are politely letting you speak. That's not what I mean. I mean consensual as in a reciprocal conversation where you're not just imposing your knowledge on someone, but rather there is a reciprocal energy of the conversation. There is a giving and receiving of the conversation. If you like, I want you to have a higher level of awareness for when you are dominating a conversation, for when you are acting as an authority. And again, I want you to take the case that you are doing that, okay? Just as like a thought experiment. Like, oh, I am being authoritative. Let's look out here and see, like, is there any evidence for me being authoritative? Even slightly, okay? Because there's this, everything has a spectrum. Everything has a spectrum. Anything from like watching your partner do the dishes, being like getting frustrated that they're not drying them correctly or something, and like giving a suggestion. Maybe in your mind, you're like, that's okay. I gave like a suggestion for something. That's not authoritative. It's not just what you're saying and doing. Again, going back to the doing, because fixers are doers. It is about how you're being about it. There's a difference between helping your partner dry the dishes with no attachment, being free and peaceful, to helping your partner dry the dishes like resenting or being frustrated or annoyed or like having this air of like this is the way that it's supposed to be done, right? Even just slightly, because people can feel that. Like, I want you to take the case. I don't want you to take the case. I want you to know that people can feel that shift in your energy, even if we can't name it, even if we don't know exactly what we're feeling. People can feel when you're being completely peaceful, detached, free, and when you're doing something with an agenda. Even if the agenda is as small as, I want the dishes to be, you know, done a specific way. And who cares about that? It's like, yeah, exactly. Who cares about that? Who cares? Let them do the dishes in the way that they want to do the dishes. It's okay. It is okay. And if you need to have a conversation about it, have a conversation about it when you are at a emotionally neutral space. Have that awareness to be at that emotionally neutral space, because fixers, when you're doing, you're go, you're looking, you're fixing, you're doing the things like, and we live in a society where that's really like hyped up. Like, I know for a long time, like, I think that because of the society that we live in, I was a fixer for much longer than than I might have been had I, been raised in a society that doesn't stress doing so much. Because when I'm like doing, I'm going to the classes, I'm going to therapy, I'm getting coaching, I'm, saying all the right things to my partner, etc., etc., etc. Like, I'm getting compliments from other people that are like, wow, you're doing so much, oh my god, like, that must be amazing, da 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 da. But who I was being about it was that like dominating energy. And when you have a dominating energy in a partnership, then it's not a partnership anymore. It's not. Like and there are going to be there is subtle like this goes into a whole nother thing, but I want you to take the case that when you have that dominant energy and I mean dominant as in righteous. Like I mean dominant as in unearned. Like I mean dominant as in not consensual. Like that you just like feel like this is the right way to do things, that energy, bringing that energy into a relationship and doing is not giving your partner the space, the breath, the freedom, the just like unshackledness, the unrestraint that they need to be their full, beautiful, amazing self. And if you're not giving them the space to be their full, beautiful, amazing self, then they're not going to, like, you're the one hindering them being the partner that you wish that they would be. In fact, you're hindering them from being an even better partner than you could possibly imagine because you're trying to control or you're fearful or you're anxious or you're being dominant or you're overstepping. So this is how fixers ruin their relationships, because then the other person feels like they can't do anything right. They don't have a say so. They have to be small. They have to conform, even in small ways. Again, like, even in just like, I can't do the dishes right, you know? Like, and I want you to take the case and not, again, actually erase that. There is actual evidence from the Gottman Center where those little things, those tiny little things every single day, that's what makes or breaks a relationship. Not the big things. So I don't mean dominant and controlling as in like you're yelling at someone or like, being condescending or, telling them what to do or something like that. I mean little things. I mean, little tiny things like the dishes, like what they do when they come home from work, like how much they call you or how little they call you, or the type of communication that they have. An example, I talked to a couple several months ago where one part of the couple was upset with the communication style of the other part of the couple, and on the surface that's understandable. It's understandable that like if you have two different types of communication styles that you're frustrated that the communication isn't working. But in delving a little bit deeper with them, what I found out was that this part of the couple was advocating that their communication style was the better way, was the right way, and that their partner needed to learn this way of communicating in order for the relationship to work. That's a fixer. That's being dominant without consent. That is being righteous. That is asserting yourself unnecessarily. That is not giving your partner the space, the grace, the compassion, the breath, the freedom to be who they need to be and to honor that and to meet them somewhere in the middle, right? And so I want you to again notice and hear yourself in this episode somewhere, even if it's just a little bit. Like, I'm not saying, like, go beat yourself up and go find flaws in yourself. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if you want to have more breath and space and room to just like fully be, because like you're not fully able to be yourself in this relationship, dear fixer, because you're too busy fixing things and being dominant and going and doing and figuring out, and it's exhausting. It's exhausting. So do yourself a favor, take 5 steps back and just breathe. Just allow yourself to be in the relationship for a while. And it is going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be anxiety inducing because it's going to feel like you need to be doing something and you don't. Give it some time and space to breathe. It's going to be weird for a while, but I need you to take 5 steps back, maybe take a sit down, and just breathe, and then reflect on, like, what are some conversations that I can have with myself and with my partner or partners to reflect on how I've been being in the relationship and the impact of how I've been being in this relationship on my partner or partners, okay? And then give those conversations space to breathe as well. And this is not an easy task, okay? Like, this is not going to happen in an afternoon. This might happen over years. This is going to take practice. But the thing is that if you're dedicated to really being an amazing partner, if you're dedicated to having beautiful, loving, just like vibrant relationships, this is the work that there is to do that. Okay. All right. I love you so much. Please reach out to me. I have 5 slots available and open in my coaching program for people who are in polyamorous or non-monogamous relationships. If that is something that you want to learn more about, call me. There is a link in the show notes to do that. So please do that. Okay. Anything else other than I love you? I'm grateful for you. I think you're amazing. Oh, yeah. Please give me feedback. There's also a link to give me feedback in the show notes as well. So that would be really helpful. And if you like this podcast, rate it and review it because that is really helpful. And if this has been really, if my words, my thoughts, my podcasts are really helpful to you, rating and reviewing it is only going to have more people see it. Or if you share it with other people, that's also going to have more people see it. So if there's someone in your life where you're like, oh my God, they need to hear this, this is the episode for them, share it with them, please, please. And thank you. I really appreciate that. Like, seriously, from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate that. This is my heart, my soul, my love, is to learn these things and then to bring them to you. Like, this is my life's work, is to help people have unconditional love in their lives. And if this is something that you want to share with people, that I just have such a deep gratitude for that. So thank you. All right. I love you all. Have an amazing day. And share the love, spread the love. Start with you first. Thank you so much for joining me today. What are your takeaways? What is an action that you're going to take that will have this make a difference in your life? However small, take that action. Don't let this just be a good idea. Make that 1% shift in your life today to live more freely and authentically. If you'd like to learn more about my coaching, my classes, or the events that I host, check out my website at www.elizabethannecunningham.com. Until next time, keep loving.